Hi, welcome to week 3 of Recycled Journal Pages. I'm Pam Carriker, and this week we will discuss reusing our supplies in different layers on our journal pages to create depth and interest. For supplies this week, we're going to reuse some things that we've already used, and then we're going to introduce a few new things as well. But the things that we introduce this week are going to be things that we are reusing from other areas of your life. This is a nice little mesh vegetable bag that I've cut open. This is a great thing for adding texture because you can lay it down like a stencil and pat paint over the top, or you can scrunch it up and dip it into paint and use it like that. Great little texture tool that can be used over and over, and you're reusing something that you would normally throw away. Same thing with little caps, little bottle caps, milk caps, the caps off these Dauber bottles, anything to make circles with. Those things are great to use, and you can find those easily in your house. Little bits of sponge, any kind. This is a little bit of a sea sponge. This is just a regular sponge. You can use anything from your kitchen sponge. You know, cut a little piece of that, cut it into shapes. There's different things you can do with that, and you can use those to apply paint as well. These are sequin waste, which is just the leftover part when they make sequins. This is the mesh that is left over, and you can find this online. It's easily found, and then you can use this as like a stencil. And you can pat over the top of it with paint or ink and leave little circles designs behind. Those are a great tool. You know, think about things that you already have around the house. These rubber stamps are always a great thing. There's lots of different textured rubber stamps that you can get that will leave a design print as well. That's something you could use. We're going to use a graphite pencil again this week. We're reusing the same thing that we had last week there. Reusing our oil pastels. And we're going to introduce some acrylic paint. Now, the acrylic paint that I'm using, I have reused some Bingo Dauber bottles that you can get empty. And then I just mix up fluid acrylic paint and some water and a little acrylic glazing medium. And what that does is extend the drying time of the paint. And I haven't had any trouble with the tips drying out or anything like that. And you can store these for a long time, and it makes the paint go a long way. So it's an easy way to apply it. You don't need these, but it's a fun little tool. Easy to use, and you can find the recipe for my paint mixture on my website if you want to look on there to find out a link to get the bottles, and then I also have my mixture of paint that I use in them. So I'm going to use 3 different colors that go with my color palette, and this week we're going to look at the page and look at the negative space on the page that we may want to fill up with some stuff. And the negative space is basically anywhere that doesn't have the design. Like this is the design, and the design, you know, the empty space around it is my negative space. So I want to fill that up with some kind of a design element. Now I could use you know, a small design element like that, which might look nice, and I may do that. Or I could use larger, I could even use the Bingo Dauber to make dots, and they come out really nice. I might do that up here just to show you. You can just make dots with them, really easy. Or you could use, you know, just sponge some texture on. You could use the rubber stamps, you know, whatever you think might look nice to add to the negative space. I think I'm going to use, go ahead and use this at an angle. And I think what I'm going to do is use my sponge to apply the paint. So I'm going to take a sponge and get it damp and wring all the water out of it. And then take some of the acrylic paint, and I'm just going to put it over here on my palette over here, and just take the sponge, pick up the acrylic paint on the sponge, and dab it. into this negative space. The nice thing about working with the sponge is you can turn the sponge over to a side that doesn't have paint, and you can pick up some of the paint so it doesn't get too heavy on there. And I'm just going to add just that little bit like that, and that's all I'm going to add. Just a little bit, maybe actually a little bit up here too, just to carry it around the page. So there you've got a little bit of a dot design element in one color, but I think I also want some bigger dots. So I think I'm just going to go down the page like this. Kind of carries that around too, because you don't want to leave, you know, just have like the turquoise up there and not have it anywhere else. So I think this will be good. Just add it a little bit around the page like that. Then maybe a little gold to my flower top. Yeah, I like that. And maybe just a touch of gold to the wing. Sometimes just a little of that paint helps take the, or, you know, helps pop it up just another little bit there. And I just like to mush it around with my finger a bit. And you don't need the bingo dauber to do this. You could put the paint on your palette, just mix it with a little bit of water. It's just fluid acrylic paint. And you could apply it with a brush, or you could mush it around a little bit with your finger like I'm doing right here. And you're going to want to let the dots dry up really well before you do too much else, because they will, you don't want to smudge them or smear them. And I think the other thing that I'm going to do right now are these stripes that are on her neck. I want to re-emphasize those. I think I'm going to want to go black on those and do some more black outlining. So I think I'll leave the stripes the way they are right now, and later I'll come back. This is all a process, so later when I go back at another step, I think I might add some more black to those. So play around with your page and fill in some of the negative space with some design elements, and let those dry up, and then we will add some more detail to them. Okay, now we're going to reuse our graphite pencil, and this is the time that we're going to bring the sketching back to the piece. So where we have design elements now is the perfect time to redraw those elements. Reusing the graphite pencil, we're reintroducing that in another layer. We have the graphite going on underneath in the journaling, and now we're reusing it right over the top. And remember that you can add drawn elements as you like to this layer too. You're not roped into what's there originally. This is the time that you can add more and re-emphasize things in maybe a slightly different way than they were the first time. And I like to go right over the details. Some of them I follow closely, and some of them I sketch around the outside. And all of this adds to that new element of your page, where it's not the same page anymore. This is a different page. This page has a new story to tell. And I go over also the elements that we put into the background, the dots. I like to trace over those. Sketchy strokes, and I like to make them quickly, and reintroducing and reusing the same supplies many times in a page gives your page a cohesive look when you're finished, because you've used the same supplies in different ways. Things like this window, I would totally sketch around that. And re-sketch. It was drawn the first time in the first page. Now I'm redrawing, reusing that same element in a new way. I'm going to redraw my flower and the flower petals. You could use a permanent marker for that step instead of the pencil if you wanted a more bold look. If your pages are bolder and not quite so soft in color palette, then use a marker. Make those things pop out. That's a great thing to do. The final step, I'm going to reintroduce and reuse these oil pastels again one more time and add just hints of color. This time is going to be a little less than the last time. I added a detail here in pencil, so I'm going to go ahead, and that's the first thing that I'm going to do, is just shade under that new layer of feathers that I added to the wing with the pencil and help those pop out a little bit. And wherever you think you need to add, the oil pastel, then you reintroduce just a teeny bit of color from the oil pastels again. And this will be the last time that we use them. You may want to go around some of your background elements that you added. This might be a time that you think that you need a little bit of color around those, and this is a good time to add that in. Some extra shading. So you look around your page, find the areas that you want to re-add some oil pastel, and go ahead and add those in. And remember, you're not limited to grays and blacks for shadows. Use color on your journal pages. It's fun. It adds a fun element. Definitely don't need to stay with grays and blacks. So for this week, by reusing the supplies that we've already used, we've added another interesting layer to our page. We've added some background interest in the form of the negative space detail that we added. And our page is getting close to being finished, but there's more to come. So I will see you next week and we will finish it off. So now we've added some background details. We've reused supplies that we used previously in the form of graphite pencil, in the form of reusing the same colors, and in the form of oil pastels. We have reused some of the supplies back onto our page, adding another layer of depth, another layer of interest, and another cohesive layer that draws all of these new elements from old pages together. And now we have one more week, and that week we will finish off our page with some great detail.